This is a story about two peoples. A people from the East, from a land of heritage, tradition, and culture. And a people from the harsh plains, barely discovered at this time in history. Africa. Far to the east, a mighty emperor sent out a fleet to explore uncharted ocean waters. The Chinese were not colonialists, but free traders who left the land and its people in peace. The gold rush attracted many Chinese migrants to juvenile Johannesburg. Since the new millennium, more and more small traders keep pouring into the country. A second Chinatown in Cyrildene, Johannesburg rapidly expands. This is no longer a story of two peoples, but of one.
You see, I work for the Chinese. I see Chinese every day, and I don't know how to say that, but I'm still thinking I belong more close to Chinese. It's like this. But I'm Chinese, but I'm not living here not long, you know. So I'm still thinking, oh, I'm Chinese. There is a lot of problem here. It's a lot of illegal boarding. It's dirty, and parking problems, and it's very cloudy here. But I'm not work here. Normally, I don't like to come here.
Here more free than nice place, fresh air, open. Yes, we check because if they're safe, maybe our life, I hear. If not safe, we may leave because sometimes South African people making too much toy, then broken the shop. Been in the shop, I don't know. So we check. But I think there is more safe because small town. Everybody remember me. He know me. He call me Zhuang. Yes, we know inside every name. Then if people coming, we can know what he want to buy. We learn small suit, then maybe cause something language. Maybe 90% custom from location people and farmer people. It's a nice price for him. If he go to Pick and Pay, it's very expensive. Sometimes maybe we can give a mahara for free.
20 rand, yeah, 20 rand.
In the car, I have one music, South African music, but I don't understand his singing what, but I like the music. The music very nice, making my heart, how to say? No, I just like the music.
Language is such an important thing, and I suppose particularly with Chinese being having characters and being a written language for so many thousands of years, and the importance of writing those characters, the importance of speaking Chinese, and those kinds of things are massive determinants. I mean, I think people would regard themselves ethnically and certainly culturally as Chinese, but I think the ties are far more South African. My great-grandfather and grandfather on my mother's side of the family came to South Africa in 1911 from the south of China, as most sort of migrants, or as most Chinese in South Africa sort of hailed from. And then on my father's side of the family, my grandfather came from, also originally from the south of China, but via Mauritius. So it's generally that typical traditional 19th, 20th century Chinese sort of migration pattern. I think in many ways I regard myself as European, Western European kind of culture, or I suppose in many ways other than Chinese culture. In a sense, I suppose it's a composite of classical Chinese civilization, certain trends of Western European culture, and then certainly the cultures of the ancient world, particularly I suppose Greece, are the ones that I feel closest to. I mean, I think because of the Prussian kind of ancestry on my mother's side of the family, maybe we looked, well, some people in our family look slightly different, and so maybe people don't immediately register that we're Chinese. I now recall I was once stopped by a traffic officer in Siraldin, in that Chinatown, and the minute I rolled down my window and spoke to him, he lost all interest in dealing with me. Africa has stuff to sell, China wishes natural resources, and China needs that to keep the Chinese economy going. So it's a very simple transactional thing at that level. And I think the Chinese have done it in a fairly sensible way for the Chinese economy because, they're building infrastructure, but very often with their own labor, which is a problem in some African countries, clearly. But, for me, it's vastly superior to the sort of Western model where the CIA will pour, billions of dollars into Mobutu Sese Seko's bank accounts, and nobody in Zaire will ever see that money. So I think China does not view itself as a developed country, and it's not. It's like it drags millions of people out of poverty every year, but there's still hundreds of millions of people in rural poverty. So China is a developing country in exactly the same sense as Africa is a developing continent. And there's a lot there that people can share and learn from each other. So I think it's for China and for Africa, it's a very fruitful relationship. It might be very scary for the West, but I think Africa is getting far more benefits than it does from its relations with, you know, any Western country.
Ja, baie mense dink ons immigrant, maar as ek praat en bly hulle stil want hulle praat baie Chinese. Chinese wat ek nie kan verstaan nie. Te veel Chinese kom van oorsee. En hulle maak baie probleme. Jy sien hulle vat rhinos en dit is nie dinge wat jy moet doen nie. Dis waar ek sleg van. Hulle maak dood die rhinos en hulle bring drugs in. Dis 'n grootste probleem. Hulle maak probleme. Dan dink al hierdie mense dat al die Chinese dieselfde, hulle maak die diere dood. Het lyk of ons hierdie goed lank al gedoen het. Maar dis nie die probleem nie. Ons het nie aan hierdie mense hier gebring om hierdie dinge te doen, jy weet. En die nuwe Chinatown is vol, gepak met Chinese van oorsee. Daar's nie baie mense wat in Johannesburg bly daar nie. Dis al die Taiwanese en die Hong Kong mense. En is groot besigheid daar. Hulle speel nie rond nie. Hulle soek nie kompetisie nie. My dad, my mom, Lindsay, Dawn, Gavin, Cedric. My ma is baie streng en pa. Het regte Chinese customs, jy weet. Jy moet maniere het en sovoort. Jy wees net soos Afrikaners, jy weet. Ons groei op dieselfde. Baie streng, pa en ma. Die apartheid daar was baie hard, maar daar was nie baie probleme nie. Ek het ons gehanteer baie goed. En deesdae is nie soveel probleme nie. Maar is al dieselfde, jy weet. Almal sê net, hey China! Jy word gewoond aan dit, jy weet. Jy kyk net die mense in die oë en loop jy weg.
Not even Snape gives that much homework.
Too much Harry Potter, too much stop now.
As a South African Chinese Taiwanese, being born in King Williamstown, I spent my junior school years at a predominantly Khoisan English school. And then in high school, I went to a predominantly white English boarding school. I did struggle though to fit in, especially to that particular group. I couldn't see myself being authentic in any particular group. So during the week I would be exposed to these South African identities. And then during the weekends, I would spend most of my time with my parents, who are obviously Taiwanese, and they also have Chinese culture that I also got to soak in. In that sense, being first generation born, I would say it was an infused identity, a hybrid type. I guess I would be a human panda, you know, white, black, and Asian. Initially, my father's leather shoe business went down under because of cheap Chinese imports. So we had to kind of streamline and find a niche, find a market particular that the Chinese can't duplicate cheaply. So my father decided to get into exotic leather products. A few months ago, my father was attacked by 2 armed gunmen at his showroom in Cape Town, Sea Point. The gunman shot him in his left shoulder. About 4 days after the incident in the hospital, I went online to check if there were any news reports of my dad's incident. The report said that, you know, the reason Chinese business owners deal in cash transactions because they found that bank fees and charges are way too expensive. And it was completely not true because my dad deals mostly in credit card and debit card transactions. So, and it didn't really portray the issue as one of, you know, criminals in South Africa. Instead it was, oh, it's the business owner's fault for carrying so much cash. They were basically baiting these criminals to come. They should have known better. So I just found it a bit upsetting. The onus is on that community who wishes to start their future in this country. The onus is on them to actually, I guess, get together if they find that there are issues such as stigmas or exploitation on these groups. The onus is on them to collaborate together with other people, of other South Africans, to get themselves heard.
I think I started safaris when I was 5. I ended up coming to the zoo and doing safaris around the zoo and seeing animals, and I never stopped.
But surely it must be quite tough.
Well, if you eat elephant trunk, it's like a donut.
Oh, elephant tongue?
Trunk.
Oh, I thought you had tongue.
No, they used to serve it in the Kruger.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Really?
Why?
Because they used to cull elephants in the Kruger.
What's called?
Shoot them to control the numbers.
Yeah.
So every year they'd shoot like 1,000 elephants.
Oh.
Yeah, and they serve the meat in the restaurant.
And they sell the
And
ivory?
you could have a hamburger, no, you'd have a buffalo burger. And you could have elephant trunk steak. I'm not joking. My parents brought me to the zoo every single weekend. And I think that's where I fell in love with animals and wildlife. From that very point, because I never grew up with any pets. The question with regards to me being Oriental in an African environment has been quite interesting in that in my field of work, which is wildlife conservation, safaris, photography, I am maybe counting in a hand of 5, there may be 2 or 3 of us. I have big concerns with the Far East being a huge market. And unfortunately, many of Africa's wildlife is sought after as exotic medicines, superstitions, and that poses a massive threat to the African continent from a wildlife population point of view. In China they have farms for tigers and lions where they breed these animals as well as bears for products, whether that be the penis, the bones, any part of that particular animal which they would like to use as far as a superstition or a medicine, that's easily available. Morally, as a conservationist, I say, that how can they be doing this? But I also have to say, well, if they are able to breed them and satisfy the market within China, from China, then they don't target our wild populations in Africa. And maybe that's the answer. The only problem I have is I think there's such a big population with such wealth that might not suffice. Those farms may not be able to supply the demand that's necessary, and so they will still target Africa. More recently in Kenya, there was a huge invitation to Chinese conservationists to come out and to visit conservation areas within Africa. I think they have to target all levels. I think it's very important to target the youth, because I've had some of my Chinese clients arrive and the children telling their parents they're no longer allowed to eat shark fin soup. They're not allowed to have these exotic dishes. So finding the children influencing the parents, and I think that's one of the key things. I think we really have to work with the youth.
Whenever people ask me my name, I have a problem because I don't know whether I should use Chinese name or English name. Another thing is, why do people put up the surname of their husband? Why do you have to change your surname when you get married? I was born in Taiwan, grew up in Taiwan. I finished university degree, got a BA. Then I came to South Africa to do a postgraduate course. I see myself as a Chinese person. People don't look at me and think, oh, you are Taiwanese. No, they see me as Chinese, and that's what I am. And I think because I don't have children, I cannot pass on my tradition to my children, to the next generation. What I do is I try to expose my customers to what Chinese culture is about. And I think that I've done a lot about that. I do special evenings. I introduce Chinese New Year banquet. What is a Moon Festival? What are the Dragon Boat Festival? And I would tell people what is the reason for that. And I think I find that very meaningful for myself, not only from a business perspective. He used to be my regular customer, and I saw this guy tipped very well, never fought with us, good guy. So we became friends. Eventually, I made him into my husband. What is South African culture? I think the problem is we don't mingle enough of the different part of South Africans. There are so many kind of Chinese. They all come here for a different reason. They all have their own different experience. So it's just great that more people are coming to look at this issue.